All right, so lesson 15 of Unit 2 is actually the last lesson of the first half of Unit 2. So after this lesson, we'll actually do a review and there'll be a mid unit assessment on Unit 2. And then we'll continue with Lesson 16 after we test on the first half of Unit 2. So if we take a look at our lesson notes here, okay, we're going to use these facts in order to solve problems in this lesson. So if I know that x minus some number is a factor of a polynomial, then the following is true. I know that that number is an x-intercept of that polynomial. I know the y value at x equals that number is 0. And I also know that if you divide the polynomial by the factor, you're not going to get a remainder. Okay. Similarly, if I know that x plus a number is a factor of a polynomial, then negative that number is an x-intercept of the polynomial. The y value at x equals negative that number is 0. And if I divide the polynomial by the factor, then I'm not going to get a remainder. So we're going to use these facts here to solve problems. Let's take a look at the examples. So number 1, consider the polynomial x to the fourth minus ux cubed plus 24x squared minus 32x plus 16 if x minus 2 is a factor of f of x, find the value of u. So they're asking us to figure out what is the value of this u here. So the important thing to realize is that x minus 2 is a factor. Okay? And the reason why this is important is if we go back to our lesson notes, if x minus a number, in this case x minus 2, is a factor of a polynomial, then I know that 2, in this case, is an x-intercept. So I know that 2 is an x-intercept. Okay? And if 2 is an x-intercept, then I know the y value at x equals 2 is 0. So to figure out the value of u, what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in x equals 2 and set it equal to 0. So I'm going to plug in x equals 2, and then I'm going to set it equal to 0. So let's see what happens here. So I have x to the fourth minus u times x cubed plus 24 times x squared minus 32 times x plus 16, and I'm going to set that equal to 0. Now I'm going to replace x with 2. Okay? And now it's just a matter of doing some simplifying. So let's start over to the left here. So 2 to the fourth, 2 to the fourth, 2 to the power of 4 is going to be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, minus u times 2 cubed. 2 cubed is going to be 8, plus 24 times 2 squared. 2 squared is 4, Negative 32 times 2 is a negative 64 plus 16 equals 0. I'm going to keep simplifying. So I have 16. And then for this one, I'm going to mess around the order. I'm going to make this a minus 8u. Minus u times 8 is the same as minus 8 times u. It'll just make it easier to solve. 24 times 4, you may need to use a calculator. I'm using a calculator as we speak. 24 times 4 is 96. And then we have minus 64 plus 16 equals 0. So I have done all of this simplifying. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of the terms that don't have u. So I'm going to take this, 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 and this, and I'm going to combine them. So I have 16 plus 96 plus negative 64 plus 16. If I combine all of those things that I just underlined in black, I get 64. So if I put everything together, I have 64 minus 8u equals 0. That is an equation that I should be able to solve. So I'm going to subtract 64 from both sides. I'm going to do this up here where I have more room. If I subtract 64 from both sides, I end up with negative 8u equals negative 64, right? Because 0 minus 64 is negative 8u. And then I'm going to finish it off by dividing both sides by negative 8. So I end up with u equals negative 64 divided by negative 8. That's a negative divided by a negative, which is a positive. So that's going to be a positive 8. Negative 64 divided by negative 8 is a positive 8. So u equals 8 in this case. So that's it for number 1. Number 2, consider the polynomial f of x equals x cubed minus 2x squared minus 5x plus 6. If 1 is one of the x-intercepts of f of x, find the two factors of f of x and rewrite it in factored form. So I know that 1 is an x-intercept. Okay? If I know that 1 is an x-intercept, so if I know if 1 is an x-intercept, then I know from my notes that x minus 1 is a factor of a polynomial. So x minus 1 is a factor of the polynomial. So one of the factors is x minus 1. To find the second factor, I'm going to do what we did in the previous lesson. So if I know this polynomial and I know that x minus 1 is one of its two factors, I can figure out the second factor by dividing. So I'm going to do x cubed minus 2x squared minus 5x plus 6 divided by x minus 1. And whatever answer I get is going to be the second factor. Okay, so let's set up the box method here. So this will be x minus 1. This will be x cubed. So x times what is x cubed? So that's going to be x times x squared. Finish out the column. This is going to be negative 1 times x squared, which is negative 1 x squared. So to go here, if I look at my next term, I have negative 2x squared, which means I need to add another negative 1x squared here, right? Because negative 1 plus negative 1 is going to give me a negative 2x squared. So next column, x times what is negative 1x squared? This is going to be x times negative 1x. X times negative 1x is negative 1x squared. Negative 1 times negative x is going to be a positive x because that is a negative times a negative. If I look at my next term, I have a negative 5x. So I have 1x over here. So to go from 1x to negative 5x, I need to add a negative 6x. Negative 6x plus 1x is negative 5x. Okay. Last column, x times what is negative 6x? That's going to be x times negative 6. And then if I finish out the column, I have negative 1 times negative 6, which is a positive 6. Now I know I'm done. Notice there's no remainder because I got a constant term of 6, and there's a constant term of 6. So my second factor is x squared minus x minus 6. Okay? So if 1 is one of the x-intercepts of f of x, find the two factors of f of x and rewrite it in factored form. So the first factor is x minus 1, and the second factor is x squared minus x minus 6. So to rewrite it in factored form, this right here is the answer. And that is it for lesson 15.